to the show. The show is all about you. Not Jeff, but you and your stories. Because everybody has a story with Jeff Seltzer. Everybody has a story with Jeff Seltzer. Brought to you by JeffSeltzer.com.
Hello and welcome to Everybody Has a Story with Jeff Seltzer. I am your host, Jeff Seltzer, and this is episode 58. It's been quite a journey so far as we started July of last year, and it's been, about a year and a third, almost a year and a half or so of podcasts. It's been quite a learning journey for myself, obviously developing myself, meeting other people, connecting, and just sharing mine and other people's stories. So it's been a lot of fun. This week, I do not have a guest. As I've talked about in the past, oftentimes getting a guest is the most difficult part of the podcast. Trying to get people to commit and just trying to schedule and all that kind of stuff. So the next few weeks, I might be off and on, depending upon if I get guests. Plus, life's just been very, very busy, mostly in a good way. Can't complain about it, but, this does take up a decent amount of time for, let's say, a passion project of mine. So follow the show on Instagram, and I'll be keeping updates there in terms of when shows will be dropping. So while I'm talking about the Instagram, might as well go through the plugs right now. So the show's Instagram is at Everybody Has a Story Pod. My personal Instagram is at Seltzer77. The show's TikTok is at Everybody Has a Story Pod. You can find the show on YouTube at Everybody Has a Story Pod. You can reach out to the show directly via email at everybodyhasastorypod@gmail.com. For all things Jeff Seltzer, you can check me out over at jeffseltzer.com. Has all the show links, all the cool stuff there. Lots of cool random videos and lots of cool random stuff too. So check that out if you get a chance. Everybodyhasastorypod.com does exist. Still trying to figure out the best use for it, but it is out there. I'll probably figure out what video or whatever else I want to point it to. But for right now, I think it has the video, I want to say, of either me doing live commentary or there's something else on there. But either way, check it out if you get a chance. Have some fun with it. The show can be found in audio form on all platforms: Spotify, YouTube, Apple, iHeartRadio, Pandora, anywhere else you can find a podcast. It's probably there. If you can't find it, let me know, and I'll see if I can get it added. The show is video on Spotify and YouTube. Reminder also, we do have a few show t-shirts left. I believe we have some mediums and some larges. $20 has the logo of the show on the front. The back has a bigger logo and says Everybody Has a Story with Jeff Seltzer on the back. With that said, I did want to talk through a couple of things for this week. So I think the general theme for this week's episode is going to be movies. I know the general topic or the broader topic for the show is Halloween Horror Nights 2025, but want to make sure that I can touch off a few other things and maybe catch up on some things that I haven't had a chance to since my last solo pod. So firstly, as you guys all know, I do like to watch movies. It is part of my mental health treatments in terms of how I kind of get myself right, calm myself down, and just kind of settle myself and just kind of enjoy things at times. So wanted to go over some movies that I've seen over the last few months. Maybe some of them will jump out at you that you want to see, maybe not. Either way, there it is. If you have any movies that you've seen recently that you like, check out the show on Instagram at Everybody Has a Story Pod. Send a DM. Let me know what you liked. Additionally, I think I forgot to mention earlier as well, if you want to be a guest on the show, DM the show as well. Looking for various stories, topics, all that kind of stuff. Want to, share people's stories and make it interesting for everybody. So back to movies. So in terms of movies I've seen recently, so I'm not sure I mentioned, if I have, just, fast forward or whatever. So back in August on Paramount Plus, a documentary about Eminem called Stans dropped, which I thought was really cool. It's funny. I've always been a fan of Eminem and always liked the song Stan from, I think it was like 25 or so years ago at this point, but never recognized until recently that when somebody says that they stan a celebrity or whatever else like that, that the origin of that expression is from Eminem in the song Stan. So that was cool. Great documentary, really interesting from different people's perspectives in terms of how Eminem has helped their lives over the years, how he's been a role model for them, things like that. So definitely worth checking out. As you guys know, I'm a big fan of people's stories and perspectives. So definitely an interesting watch if you have Paramount Plus. In theaters, my family and I saw The Long Walk. The Long Walk is based off of a Stephen King story that came out, I want to say 45 plus years ago or so. When I was a kid, I read the story. I thought it was really, really interesting. For those that don't know, the general premise is a bunch of kids, let's say teenagers, maybe older teenagers, sign up for what's referred to as the long walk, where they all have to continue to walk, and the last person still walking wins like a prize of some kind. So I think it's kind of like their family is like set up for life with money and stuff like that. I don't know that they got too detailed into the story in the book or the movie in terms of what the actual prize was, except for the fact that it's life changing. And those that don't make it to the end, which would be everybody except for one person, unfortunately meet their demise during the walk. I thought the book was really good of what I remember from years ago. The movie I thought was interesting. I thought it was well done. They could have gone in different directions that I think I would have enjoyed a little bit more. The ending was also a little, I guess, a little different than the book as well. If it shows up on streaming like HBO or whatever else like that in the next couple of months, I'd say definitely check it out. Interesting movie. And like I said, one that I'd waited my whole life to, I guess, watch because I never realized they'd actually make it into a movie. I was hopeful, but didn't think they would. They did, which was really cool. So definitely worth checking it out. Office Space. So corporate America is always something that really intrigues me. Office Space came out in, I believe, 1998 or 1999. And here we are 25 plus years later. And it's funny, every time I watch it, it just feels more and more spot on with how I guess corporate life, professional life really is at this point. Mike Judge was well ahead of his time. When I was in Florida last month, I saw the movie Him. I think it was produced by Jordan Peele. Initially, I thought it was going to be like a Jordan Peele film, similar to like Us or Get Out, but it was just produced by him. I didn't love it. I thought it was very I thought it was an interesting concept. Basic premise is it's a high school football star, or actually a college football star, I think, who's really great, but somebody wants to make him greater, and then he has to kind of go into like the system before it makes it into, I guess, their version of the NFL. And it becomes really just weird and different and kind of out there. Wasn't great. I will say I was in a theater that had about 500 seats, and there were about 3 people in the theater. So that was, I always enjoy being one of the only people in the theater for a movie like that. It helps to kind of just like relax and not worry about people around me, hear people around me and stuff like that too. But with that said, I would say you could probably skip Him. Adulthood was a movie that really surprised me. I didn't know much about it until Beth was going on a trip, and she had bought it on iTunes. Long story short, I would say it's almost like a modern day Very Bad Things. So if you saw Very Bad Things in the late 90s, where it's kind of like a dark humor, where it's a bunch of people who try to fix a situation and everything they do to fix it makes it worse, but like in a dark way. That pretty much explains it. It stars Josh Gad. Really, really good. I thought really entertaining, well worth watching. So if you can get access to the movie Adulthood, definitely worth it. Screamboat, I think I mentioned a few weeks ago. I've been watching some of the, let's say, the horror movies based on Disney films when Disney loses the rights or the licensing to characters. There are a couple of smaller movie studios that have been making horror versions of them. So there was a Winnie the Pooh horror movie came out a year and a half ago, Honey and Blood, which I thought the first one was really good. Way too gory, but the storyline was interesting. Second Winnie the Pooh movie, I bailed about 10 minutes in because I was like, you know what, I think I've seen enough and it's too much gore. Screamboat was based on Steamboat Willie, which is, an infamous Disney character of Mickey Mouse. I thought it was interesting. It's on Peacock if anybody wants to check it out. I don't know that I would call it great. It definitely tried to be very in your face with all the Disney references. It was fine. Again, kind of a little too gory, a little too over the top in certain aspects. There's like one scene that I think when you see it, you're like, that was probably too much. But overall, it was fine. It also starred the guy who plays Art the Clown in Terrifier, which, I mean, he's a great character actor. He's a great, like, in miming and all sorts of stuff like that. So that was cool to see him there. But again, I'd say, unless you like horror or you're curious to see what Steamboat Willie's, I guess, true origins could have been, it's probably a movie you could probably skip. I did try watching, there's a Peter Pan one also on Peacock, which is a horror Peter Pan. I legitimately made about 7 minutes in, and I was like, you know what, I don't think I need this. So do what you want with that. Older movie called The House with Will Ferrell and Amy Poehler. It's a funny movie, and I think for me, it's also kind of timely in the fact that it's about how they're going to try to pay for their daughter to go to college, all sorts of shenanigans. It's a great comedy movie, as you'd expect, with those two actors leading it. There's one scene that always cracks me up that I always go back to, where Will Ferrell and Amy Poehler are trying to find money and try to look at all their accounts. And they go to their finance person, like, look, there's $401,000 in this account. What are you talking about? We've got money. And the guy's like, or the lady's like, no, it's a 401k. You've got about $20 in there. So that's not really $401,000. You can't do much with that. In theaters, I saw the movie The Smashing Machine, which is a movie about Mark Kerr, former UFC fighter, former Pride fighter from the late 90s. It's from A24, who they've been very, in my opinion, very hit or miss in terms of the movies they put out. I thought it was very well done in like almost like documentary form, but obviously it was recreated. You had The Rock as Mark Kerr, Ryan Bader as Mark Coleman. You had Bas Rutten as Bas Rutten. So it was interesting. I thought it was cool to see in a big screen. But what I'll say is, unless you were, let's say, a fighting fan, you could probably skip it. So there was that. A few weekends ago, I had some time to myself, so I rewatched The 40-Year-Old Virgin and Knocked Up. Both movies, years later, are still really, really funny. Really, obviously, over the top in terms of the language, in terms of the jokes and stuff like that. But really, at least in my opinion, hold up and are movies that I did really enjoy in watching them again for the first time in a long time. On Netflix, there's a documentary called Unknown Number: The High School Catfish. So this, I think, was in the news recently about a guy and his girlfriend who were high school students or middle school students at the time, who were just being abused and bullied via text messages for like a long time, and all sorts of things, I guess, ensued based off of that. I thought it was very interesting, and the ending, which I'm not going to spoil for those who haven't watched it yet, really, I guess, I don't know, it kind of upset me a little bit, I guess, in terms of like just seeing how sociopathic some people can be, in terms of like how abusive they can be, and like saying no, it's all for the greater good. Basically, this was the intention. I really meant good things about what I was doing. So I don't know. I would say it's definitely worth watching. If you know the ending, maybe you don't need to watch it. But it's an interesting watch. It's on Netflix. Again, it's called Unknown Number: The High School Catfish. Two more movies, then I'll get on to something else here. So Ready or Not is a movie that I saw a few years ago in theaters, and I recently watched it with my younger daughter. Really cool, like horror-ish, sci-fi kind of a movie or whatever, where basically a woman marries into a family, and she has to play a game of hide and go seek for a whole night. And if she survives, like she's in the family, but if not, obviously she doesn't survive. So I don't think I'm doing it justice in terms of explaining the movie, but it's definitely worth checking it out. I'd say go on YouTube and check out the trailer. That's how I sold Allison on watching it, and she really enjoyed it. So definitely worth checking out. And then this past Friday, Black Phone 2 opened up. So I really enjoyed the first Black Phone movie. Came out a few years ago. Even Halloween Horror Nights did a house based on Black Phone, which was really, really cool. Stars Ethan Hawke and a bunch of other actors and actresses who I wasn't really familiar with. The sequel really felt like a Nightmare on Elm Street kind of a movie. Like it almost felt like they made a Nightmare on Elm Street script, decided they didn't have the rights to it or didn't know what to do with it, and then just kind of like backed it into a Black Phone kind of a movie. There were some interesting points. There were I liked some of the origin story stuff. There was some really, I guess, interesting and entertaining pieces to it. But it really felt like it was just it was a lot darker and a lot more violent than the first movie, but storyline wise, it just didn't really hold me or captivate me as the first one did. The first one had a little bit of, let's say, sci-fi element to it. This one went like 100% into the sci-fi aspect, which is probably a bit too much. It wasn't really what I was hoping for, although what I will say is based on the trailers, I kind of expected it. But I did go to see the movie anyway. So I would say you could probably wait till it's on streaming, but if you like the first movie, check it out if you'd like to. A few weeks ago, I had reached out on Instagram to see if anybody had any favorite movie soundtracks. So for me, growing up, movie soundtracks were always key. I mean, being a child of the 80s, there were so many just classics that were great. And the fact that you hear a certain song and you're like, oh yeah, obviously, that makes me think about that movie. This is just kind of the way that it works a lot of times. So before going over some of my favorite movie soundtracks that I have over time, I wanted to share some of the listeners' favorite movie soundtracks. So first of all, friend of the show, buddy of the show, pal of the show, and executive musical producer of the show, Marcus Brandon, shared his two favorites. So he had said Batman Forever, which agreed. I mean, I think I was in maybe junior or senior in high school when Batman Forever came out. Kiss from a Rose by Seal was on the radio 24/7 at the time. That's one of those that I think where the soundtrack, or specifically that song, became much bigger than the movie ever did. Kiss from a Rose. Another song that always jumped out at me too, that I don't know if anybody ever heard it. But for me, since I collected CDs when I was in high school, was also one that was on repeat. It was from U2 called Hold Me, Thrill Me, Kiss Me, also on the Batman Forever soundtrack. So a fun soundtrack, bunch of bangers on there. He also mentioned The Lion King, which also coincidentally was, I want to say, junior or senior year of me for high school as well. Classic, Circle of Life, obviously, is a big one. Hakuna Matata, who hasn't heard that song? So two great ones, definitely from a certain era that Marcus has some hope for or some happiness for. Another friend of the show, also former guest of the show, Jewel, said Soul Food. So to be perfectly transparent, I don't know that I've ever heard or seen the movie or listened to the soundtrack. But I did a little research into the soundtrack after Jewel posted it. And there were a lot of great songs on it, or at least a lot of great artists. I'm not sure I am familiar with the songs on there. I might be. I'll have to dig deeper into it. But I mean, the Soul Food soundtrack has Boyz II Men, Lil Kim, Drew Hill, Jay-Z, Blackstreet. So it sounds like a lot of music that I would like to listen to. So I should probably dig deeper and listen to it after recording this. Lastly, our friends Old Jay and Young Jay from J&J Collectibles, they sent in Can't Hardly Wait, the soundtrack from the late 90s. So this is also one where I think it does a really great, it really depicts the genre or the era, I guess, right? Like late 90s. So the Can't Hardly Wait soundtrack is so late 90s is what I put down in my notes here. Third Eye Blind, Blink-182, Busta Rhymes, Run DMC, who kind of had a resurgence around that time, whatever. Lots of great stuff there. So Can't Hardly Wait. I haven't watched that movie in years. I should probably go rewatch it. But that was a fun one if I remember. I think I saw it. In theaters actually with my buddy Chad. So that was 98, 99 or so, something like that. Really, really good times. In terms of my favorite movie soundtracks, so some of them might be familiar to people and others might be surprises. So what I'll say is, and this is in no particular order. So I did not rank it. I just kind of put it in the order that I thought of them. So first off, I would say the Pitch Perfect soundtrack. You could probably say all three Pitch Perfect movies, but I'd say specifically the first one. It's a movie that's based around people singing. And it's all like, great songs from like 2012, 2011, that kind of that time period. Lots of great stuff, lots of great mashups, really, really catchy. And it's one that I have on repeat a lot. And I've since shared the movie with my daughter, Robin, who loves the movie, loves the soundtrack too. So there could be some that I love the music. There could be some that I love the time I spent with Robin watching the movie and listening to the music, or it could be an Anna Kendrick thing. I don't know. But with that said, great soundtrack, definitely one worth checking out if you haven't listened to or watched the movie. Dirty Dancing, I think it was like late 80s, early 90s. There were so many just great songs that as soon as you hear it, even though some of the songs were from 30 years earlier, they still are attached to the movie Dirty Dancing. There's I've Had the Time of My Life. She's Like the Wind, Hungry Eyes. It's just so good. And it's a movie that I probably find myself watching at least once a year with the soundtrack on repeat from time to time. So definitely one of my favorites. Pretty Woman, around the same time period as well. Two songs that stick out at me, I guess three technically, including the self-titled Pretty Woman song. So there's Pretty Woman from Roy Orbison. There's King Wishful Thinking from Go West. And then there's the Roxette song, It Must Have Been Love. All three songs are great. And anytime I hear any of those three songs, I do think about the movie Pretty Woman. Lastly, I'll put on my list, and this is one where I haven't listened to it in a while, but I thought it was just so innovative at the time. So, in recent years, last couple of decades, you've had a lot more like rock rap collaborations. So like there was the Linkin Park Jay-Z album, Collision Course, which is one of my favorite albums. So good. There's been a lot of other collaborations. I think Linkin Park did something with Busta Rhymes years ago. A lot of Linkin Park themes here, I guess. But a lot of just cross genre. Since I, as a musical fan, do love things that, I like rock, I like rap, I like metal, I like lots of different types of music. So combining them just felt like, a natural progression. So in the mid to late 90s, there was a movie called Judgment Night, which I think the premise was, and I haven't seen the movie in like 30 years. I guess that probably maths up. So if I'm missing it, keep me honest here, guys. So Judgment Night was basically, I think, a bunch of people who were driving down a highway. They either get off an exit because the car breaks down or for whatever reason, and they end up in a bad neighborhood, and it kind of goes from there. But the Judgment Night soundtrack had a lot of like rock rap collaborations. The one that jumps out at me the most was, I think it was Biohazard and Onyx. So Biohazard was like a really like heavy metal group-ish or so in the 90s. And Onyx had a bunch of really great rap songs in the 90s as well. They had Slam. They had a bunch of titles that I can't say on the air because I try not to curse on here. They had a lot of great stuff. So it was definitely one that, it's weirdly, I don't necessarily specifically remember too much about the soundtrack, except for the fact that I just loved the general concept of it. So If any of these movies or soundtracks jump out at you, definitely take a listen, send me a message, let me know what you think, and I'll share your thoughts if you'd like on a future episode. Now I'd like to get to kind of what I'm going to call the main event of the episode. So last month I did my annual trip down to Florida for Halloween Horror Nights at Universal Orlando. I hit Disney, did a bunch of different things. I want to walk a little bit through that. And over the last 2 weeks, I think I've teased the fact that one night I ended up vomiting in a Chili's bathroom. So let me kind of take a step back and walk through the week. And I'll spend most of the time in this story talking about my favorite Halloween Horror Nights houses this year. Because I'll say I've been going to Halloween Horror Nights in Universal Orlando since 2012. I only missed 1 year, 2020, and there actually was no Horror Nights that year because of COVID. So technically I've been, I guess, every year since 2020. So I flew down on a Tuesday. What did I do? Checked at the hotel. I went to Epcot. So first thing I wanted to do was check out the new Test Track. So those of you that have been to Epcot in the past, there's a ride called Test Track. They closed it down for a while. They rethemed it. It reopened this past summer. And I was able to ride this for the first time, which was really cool. It's one of the, only roller coaster-ish rides that I can still ride without getting sick. So for me, I was a little concerned going into it. Like, hey, did they change it? Did they make it more aggressive? Like, what's going on? It was great. Like, the theming was really good. I really enjoyed it. It was fun. Definitely still had the original, I don't say theming, but like ride elements that the old ride had. You still go outside, do some, around the quote test track and stuff like that. Really fun. Definitely worth checking out. If you like the old Test Track, I think you'll like this one as well. I checked out the new restaurant Geo 82, which is at Epcot, which I thought was just fine. I think in a little bit you'll see that maybe I wasn't feeling that well going into it. But like going into Geo 82, I wasn't that impressed. I didn't really feel like drinking. I wasn't really, nothing really excited me that much about the bar. It was fine. It really felt like almost an afterthought. They said like, hey, we have this space here. Let's create a new restaurant or bar. When I say restaurant or bar, I mean bar, because there was like 4 items of food on the menu, and none of them were really that jumping out at me at the time. So I went in, I had a glass of water, and then I left, which is weird because I had a reservation for the place, and it was really tough to get into, but I just wasn't really feeling it at the time. Did a couple other rides, obviously did Living with the Land. Eventually went back to my hotel and then waited because I was supposed to meet up with friend of the show, former guest, Mary Kate, so we can go to NXT Wrestling that night, which was at Full Sail University, which was like 50 or 55 minutes away. So she eventually came over. She picked me up. My first time meeting her in person, which I think I've mentioned in the past. Like, me and her have been to probably 100 wrestling shows at the same time, like in the same building, but had never met before. So this for me was really cool to finally meet her. We caught up. We talked a lot about various wrestling memories, various just life things like that. It was a lot of fun. So we drove to the NXT wrestling show. On the way there, I started to get a headache. Wasn't feeling great, but I was like, you know what, it's probably fine. Went through with it. We found the NXT building, which was Full Sail University, and then there was a Chili's across the street. We're like, hey, great, we're here. We found the building. Let's go get dinner. Went to go get dinner. As many of you probably know, I love chain restaurants, franchise restaurants, and specifically Chili's are great. Chips and salsa are always amazing. Always give Dr. Pepper there, stuff like that. About halfway through dinner, I just started feeling a little bit off. Went into the bathroom, and I just got sick. Like, it was not a great experience. But with that said, I figured, okay, maybe it's food poisoning, maybe it's a migraine. I wasn't really sure, but we made it through. I did what I had to. Came out of the bathroom, went to the wrestling show. We waited outside. Mary Kate ran into a couple of her friends. She was talking to them. I again ran around the corner and got sick, which wasn't great, but that's how life goes sometimes, I guess. What else? While we're waiting in line to go into the wrestling show, they did like a pre-tape where some of the wrestlers come out and start recording some stuff, for either TV or social media, whatever else like that. So I did manage to snag a picture with Ava, who is The Rock's daughter in real life. So that was pretty cool to add that to my collection of pictures with wrestlers. Went into the show. The building looks much bigger on TV, I'll say. We were able to get like third row seats with our backs to the main camera. Seats were great. Hung out. It was me, Mary Kate, and Buck Woodward, a friend of hers who anybody who's an old ECW wrestling fan will probably know him from One Wrestling, or years ago, he used to just work behind the scenes at ECW, I believe. So it was cool to meet him. The wrestling show was called NXT Homecoming. So they brought back a bunch of WWE wrestlers who had wrestled in NXT in the past. Alexa Bliss being one of them. And the row of seats that we sat in was interesting because we sat right in front of the family row. So generally the family of wrestlers would sit behind us when their family members was wrestling. So for those that don't know, Alexa Bliss, her husband is early 2000s pop star Ryan Cabrera. So when she came out to wrestle, he sat right behind us. I said hi to him, got a quick picture with him. He's really cool. So that was fun. The whole show was great. It was a lot of fun. It's really cool to see like Rhea Ripley in a small environment, Damian Priest in a small environment. Stephanie Vaquer was back. So that was a lot of fun. Really, really cool. So went back to the hotel. After the wrestling show was over, Mary Kate dropped me off, said thank you, great meeting you, all that kind of stuff. And then I slept in the next day. So on Wednesday, my initial plans were to go to a Unmasking the Horror tour at Halloween Horror Nights. The Unmasking the Horror tours are lights on tours during the day where you get to go and see the houses more in detail, lights on, you can get more stories, and it's a really cool setup. I've done it in the past. It's really a lot of fun. Since I had gotten sick the night before, I decided to cancel the tour for myself because I just did not feel good at all. Figured I'd be better off just sleeping in. It's not a cheap tour either, so I wanted to make sure that I was able to rest and felt good for the rest of the week. So slept in Wednesday, checked in on my hotel at Helios on Wednesday. Wednesday night, met up with my friends Chelsea and Jay. We had dinner at the restaurant at the top of Helios, which was amazing. Really, really cool to see. The food was good. Drinks up there were pretty good. Plus you could see like all of Epic Universe from like the very top of Helios, which is really cool because the Helios Hotel, which I think I mentioned in the previous episode, is the new Universal Orlando Hotel, which is right at Epic Universe. So like you basically fall out of the hotel and you're in Epic Universe, which is great. So they got to see the hotel for the first time, a lot of fun, hung out with them. Over the next few days, I went to Epic Universe, hit some of the Universal parks. Chelsea and Jay did as well. Let's see, anything else notable there? Lots of really cool souvenirs, I would say, for Halloween Horror Nights this year, especially since they had a lot of really cool and notable houses. So I guess with that, let me get into my favorite houses for Halloween Horror Nights this year. So first of all, I did a little research going into Halloween Horror Nights this year. I'd never seen Five Nights at Freddy's. I did try watching it when it first came out a few years ago, and I wasn't that excited about it, so I don't think I finished it the first time. But I went back and rewatched Five Nights at Freddy's just knowing that I was going to go to the house, which I was excited that I did or happy that I did because the Five Nights at Freddy's house was really, really well done. The animatronics looked really cool. Like you felt like you were in the movie, which after I rewatched Five Nights at Freddy's, I really did decide that it's probably a better Horror Nights house than a movie. And then when I saw the house and went through the house, I agreed with myself that the house was great. The movie was fine. There's a sequel coming out later this year, which I'll probably end up seeing just, because I like movies and I watch movies. I'm not excited about the movie, but I'll go check it out regardless. The WWE Wyatt Six house, for me, was probably one of my favorites for many reasons. First of all, as a wrestling fan, the fact that they made a Halloween Horror Nights house built around a WWE or wrestling like entity was really cool. Went inside, there were so many just like wrestling Easter eggs. They had basically all the scare actors were dressed like the wrestling characters, the Wyatt Six, which was really cool. So for me, like you really felt like you were walking like, around a wrestling show, wrestling locker room, backstage at a wrestling, area, stuff like that. Really, really cool. And what was funny was 2 days before I went to Halloween Horror Nights, so Alexa Bliss, who I mentioned earlier, wrestled at NXT while she was down in Orlando. She also actually was a scare actor for a short time at Halloween Horror Nights that year. 2 days before I was at Halloween Horror Nights, where she was playing herself. So Alexa Bliss did have a on-screen connection with Bray Wyatt, who the house is built around. So there is an actress who generally plays Alexa Bliss in the house. But 2 days before I was at Halloween Horror Nights, Alexa Bliss actually went in for a short stint and pretended to be herself, which was really, really, really cool. I've seen videos of it, and she seemed like she was having a good time, which was great. Again, the house was great. The Easter eggs were great. They had an ECW title belt. They had like Jimmy Hart's megaphone. They had all sorts of random things that, I think as a non-wrestling fan, people might enjoy the house, but as a wrestling fan, I picked up even more about the house, which was really cool. So that was great. Really enjoyed that. Additionally, there's a Terrifier house. So for those that know, Terrifier is a horror set of films that started coming out a few years ago. Super, super low budget, really over the top gory and just like ridiculously over the top. I've watched all three Terrifier movies. I don't love them because, as mentioned earlier, like I don't necessarily love the gore aspect. I kind of like more of the the fear aspect, the scare aspect, stuff like that. But since they are, pop culture, I guess I did decide to watch all three of them. And then went to the house this year, and the house was very well done. So the lead, I guess, quote, villain or bad guy or monster in Terrifier is Art the Clown. So Art the Clown was everywhere. He was in the house. He was out of the house walking around. I did an RIP tour on Saturday, and while I was waiting at the restaurant area, Art the Clown was walking around, and I got a bunch of pictures with him. I even got a pretty cool video of him looking through like pictures and doing something, whatever, which I posted to TikTok, which has gotten like 23 or 24,000 views so far. So really cool video. Got some really cool pictures. I thought will probably be the thumbnail for the show this week is of me with Art the Clown. But the house was cool, I would say, like definitely over the top, gory, scary. You felt like you were in the movie. What was neat was at the end of the house, there was a dry and a wet exit. So when Halloween Horror Nights first opened up this year, the wet exit apparently was like torrential. Like people were coming out soaked. It's basically just like sprinklers and water and all sorts of stuff coming down. Where it's supposed to be like blood everywhere, but it's just water for obvious reasons. Versus the dry exit, you just walk through. There's a lot of strobe lights and you walk out. I think over the last like month or two, they've been playing with how wet they made the exit. By the time I went, it was damp. It was a little water. It wasn't that bad. I think they probably made it more wet since then. But I'd seen videos like opening night or whatever. People were coming out just drenched. So I guess they have to kind of make sure it's safe because I think people were slipping on it, and that's probably not in their best interest there. Other houses that happened this year in Halloween Horror Nights. So they had the Jason universe, which I thought was really cool. The Jason universe is based around Friday the 13th. My assumption is they called it the Jason universe because for the last decade or decade and a half, there have been a lot of rights issues over Friday the 13th. I don't know who owns it. I don't think anybody knows who owns it because there have been movies and TV shows based on this that have been greenlit and canceled. Even the video game that was out eventually got pulled, I guess, because they didn't know who to pay or who owned the rights to it or whatever else like that. So my guess is by calling it the Jason universe, they're able to kind of like get around that aspect of it. But it basically was Friday the 13th. You had Jason everywhere. You had Jason's mom everywhere. You had lots of scenes from the Friday the 13th movies. Lots of fun. Really enjoyed it. There was one area where it was like super narrow, which is generally one of the more scary types of houses where like it's narrow. So, you're feeling claustrophobic. You don't know what's going to jump out at you. There was one area where Jason's mom was just sitting there yelling at you and basically giving like sound bites from the movie, which was really cool and a lot of fun. Overall, I did really enjoy it. I thought it was well done. The last of the licensed houses was Fallout, built around the video game Fallout as well as the TV series, which is on Amazon Prime. What I will say is I did try to watch the TV series in preparation for this, doing some research. Amazon Prime has recently started putting commercials in. So for years, if you had Amazon Prime, you got Amazon Prime videos included with no commercials. Recently, they've started saying, okay, you got to pay now to get rid of the commercials, which I haven't done. So I never made it through the first episode. I thought the show was good enough, but not good enough that I would watch it with commercials I can't skip through. Maybe that's, a sign of 2025, or maybe, I don't know, just who I am at this point. But I don't watch commercials. I don't enjoy it. I want to be as focused as possible. And commercials just kind of take me out of it. So, and the show didn't really grip me enough to say, hey, I've got to watch this. I need to watch this. So I watched the first episode, which kind of pulled me in enough to know what the house might be about. And the first, I'd say, quarter of the house was the first episode. So I thought that was neat. The fact that it was kind of like, a 1-to-1 of sorts. The rest of the house, I thought it was interesting. I don't know enough about the origin stories in terms of how good the house was versus the show or the video game. People that I've talked to have said they were super disappointed with the house. So maybe I was better off I didn't spend too much time doing research into Fallout going into it. So that was that. There were a bunch of other original houses. And to be honest, now that I'm recording this about a month after I did them, I don't remember too much about them. I do remember that I think I liked most of them. But the other houses they had were Hatchet and Chains, Demon Bounty Hunters, Dolls, Let's Play Dead, which I think that was pretty cool. That was like a bunch of oversized dolls and such in a house, which was neat. Grave of Flesh, Galkin, Monsters of the North, and Artista, A Spanish Haunting. So, like I said, I think Five Nights at Freddy's was great. The Wrestling House was great. Terrifier House I thought was great. Jason Universe I thought was really good. Fallout I thought was fine. And then the original houses I thought were good enough. But overall I had a great time. Like I said before, I did an RIP tour. on Saturday, which was great. I went with my buddy Jay, which was a lot of fun. So met Art the Clown right before the tour. Again, not Art the Clown from the movies. They obviously have a local actor who does it, but it's the same actor, I think, who's played Jack and plays the Grinch around Christmas time and such. But he's very, very good. Like, you definitely believe that he could be or is Art the Clown, which is really awesome. A lot of fun. Halloween Horror Nights is something, like I said, I go every year. For me, whether it's personal, professional, or politically, things are going wacky. It's kind of like a safe place that I go to, and like everything just feels good. Everything just feels fine and normal. And that was that. So really enjoyed it. Looking forward to and already planning next year's trip. So we'll see how that goes. I think that's going to be it for this week. I don't have any guests, as mentioned before. Just wanted to kind of talk about a few things that I've done recently, which I thought was good. So I may or may not be on next week. Like I said, check out the social media sites, specifically Instagram, to see when the show is going to return. It could be back in a week. It could be back in a few weeks. I obviously have some work to do. And also I want to try to work through some other stuff as well. So life is good. Nothing to worry about. But definitely reach out. Hit me up on Instagram at Everybody's Story Pod if you want to be a guest or if you have any questions or anything you'd like to chat about on the show, outside of the show, or personally. Reminder to everybody, the show is on Instagram, as mentioned before, at Everybody's Story Pod. The TikTok is at Everybody Has a Story Pod. My personal Instagram is at Seltzer77. The YouTube is at Everybody Has a Story Pod. You can reach out to the show via email at everybodyhasastorypod@gmail.com. For all things Jeff Seltzer, you can check me out at jeffseltzer.com. We're on all podcast platforms. We're video on Spotify and YouTube. We are audio in those two locations and everywhere else. So check them out. Definitely reach out if you have any questions or if you'd like to interact at all for the show. With that said, have an amazing week, an amazing whatever amount of time this is. I'll be back at some point soon. Take care and have a great day. Bye.
Everybody has a story with Jeff Seltzer. 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 Everybody has a story with Jeff Seltzer.